Welcome to the Immutable Mindset, and thank you. Today, we have an exciting guest with us, Chris Adamo. He's an investor, advisor, and co-founder of Flamingo Capital, a venture capital fund that invests in early-stage companies in Miami. Chris is highly knowledgeable in the Web3 and blockchain space, having invested and advised in over 20 projects and organizations in the Web3 field and beyond. You may be familiar with some of the Web3 startups that he's invested in, organizations like Dapper Labs, Floor, Massive, and Zrun, to name a few. But what makes Chris truly special is his intangibles. He's a master connector and a bridge builder who's always looking to meet new people because he believes in the possibilities of new relationships. Before starting Flamingo Capital, Chris spent 15 years working in partnership development. He was the head of strategic partnerships at 1-800-Flowers.com for 8 years and helped the company grow into a Fortune 1000 brand. Chris is also the co-founder at media tech startup Whereby Us, which focuses on organizing local community engagement to help people get more involved, and Letterhead, a newsletter platform built for content and community. He's focused on social impact, civic engagement, and was even once dubbed the Pied Piper of the Miami tech scene. And finally, I would be quite remiss not to mention your relationship, Chris, with our co-host, Adam Posner. You've been Adam's Sherpa into Web3, and you two have been best friends for a long time. Your overall impact on a recruitment consultancy, Probably Nothing Talent, has been enormous. We speak from experience when we talk about Chris's altruism. Adam, of course, more so than me, which I'm sure we'll touch on today, but also your influence on our early success. I tell Adam all the time how much I'm learning about the power of relationships and being open to possibilities. Chris, welcome to the Immutable Mindset, and thank you for coming on.
Thanks, Kevin. Really good background and all the kind words, and right back at you guys. Yes, I've known Adam for more than 3 decades at this point, and it's been a fun journey as we have went from Web 1 to Web 2 to Web 3 and to the new power of the internet. But you're right. The one thing that does always is our basis is our relationships, our one-to-one relationships with other people, organizations, and other communities. So, spot on there. That's kind of our glue. Without that, we're nothing.
Right? That's Web3, right? Peer-to-peer. Peer-to-peer is what it's all about. Relationships, absolutely. When I was preparing for this show and looking for ways for the audience to connect and gravitate you instantly, there was a story that I was aware of before, but it stood out to me, and it really did that for me instantly. And given this is a Web3 show, right? And Web3 is all about taking risks and, again, being open to possibilities and just, as I mentioned, thinking about that peer-to-peer connection. I really wanted to start here with you. And so there's something you've been doing for the last 6 or 7 years that just blew me away in terms of the level of consistency and dedication you've had that most people can only, honestly dream of achieving. I've heard you say how much you believe in the power of new relationships, which we've gone over, and, whether they go nowhere or, as we say in Web3, they go to the moon. And so I have to ask you, how has the phrase, "Hey man, nice shirt," impacted your life and relationships you made over the last 6 years or so? And can you give the audience a little bit of background on what that means as well?
Yeah. Well, I have a Hawaiian shirt on right now from Jam's World, this Hawaiian company. And I've been wearing the same brand every day since December 1st, 2016. So yeah, we're in year 7 right now. I haven't missed a day ever. It's just as easy uniform for me to wear, and people seem to love and engage with the shirts in a very natural manner. It breaks down barriers instantaneously. It's a good calling card. They're also beautifully made, and they last forever. So I'm
breathable
gonna
fabric.
iron them. It's very breathable. It's Japanese spun rayon, so made of bamboo. And they definitely have been life-changing for me. I was a New Yorker. It was there's 2 Chris's. There's pre-Miami and post-Miami. I was in New York for 30-something years and, wearing very normal clothes, just getting the button-ups and black jeans and whatever. And I got to Miami. I'm like, you know what? I think it's time to just let my freak flag fly. I'm just going to put whatever I want on. And I found these during our Basel of that year. And I was just like, this is great. Just easy to meet people. I'm always gonna probably be somewhat fashionable, but with some interesting designs on. And it just makes me feel good and relaxed, even when I'm in like high stress situations.
A couple of notes about Chris's
Yeah.
shirts. First and foremost, at a large event, it's very easy to spot him. Sometimes, if I'm not wearing my glasses, I know I know I could find them there. And Chris is also very generous with them. I have a couple in my collection that I've worn as well there too. And anytime I wear them, it's just kind of channeling my inner Adamo there. So the shirts are great. And when we share this episode, I'll post a special video and link to an inside tour of Chris's closet,
Oh,
exclusive.
oh, which which begs the question, Chris, how many of those shirts do you have?
I haven't ever really counted, but I have 3 sections in my closet totally full, so definitely over 100.
Wow,
I kind of
nice.
rotate them like, every day, just new one that I haven't worn in a long time. And that's it. There's like no thinking involved. It's just like match that with a pair of black pants and some Jordans. I'm good. I'm out the door.
That's awesome, and it really does. It speaks again to just opening up to relationships, opening up to somebody, a random person just coming up and speaking to you, right? And it's Web3. Web3 is so relationship based, right? You're talking about it, being in this big crowd and not knowing anybody. You meet one person at an NFT event, tell them an idea you had. You connect this person who invests in this company, that connects you with another person who's developing this product, and the next thing you know, you're in front of Gary Vee telling them what your idea was. It feels so small, but and then yet at the same time, Web3 it's international, right? So it's also like very sprawling and decentralized around the world. So it almost gives you like this New York City and Miami feel, which is interesting when speaking to you because you're somebody that spent 32 years in Queens, New York City, and then more recently you took your talents to Miami, so you can understand both spaces. So curious, how important is it for people to slow down in this space, establish those relationships and roots, and not get lost in the sprawling development that's happening all around us?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to being consistent and being consistent how you treat people. I think that all of us believe in the golden rule. It's like, you treat folks how you want to be treated yourself, and you do that in everything you do. And no matter what happens in return, just kind of stick to that. I think forever you're going to be good, and it'll come back to you tenfold. Usually, I'm not really keeping score of what I'm giving to people. You'll know sometimes when the person on the other side is a taker, and you'll learn the lesson pretty fast. So you can kind of go into that kind of that trading mode if you have to. But often I'm just like doing things because I can, and because it feels like this person, if this one email can change someone's life, amazing. Let's make it happen. As long as they're kind of like in it for the right reasons. And I mean, I've done my life is about being consistent, whether it be the shirts or my Wednesday events or the way I invest in startups, and the way I get involved, like literally hands on with everyone I invest into. For me, it's super important to kind of have that same consistency of what you do across all parts of life, even with like the way you treat your kids and your family and everything else involved in that. And that's tricky sometimes, because like people often aren't the same they are at work as they are at home. And we kind of sometimes can switch. Sometimes I have to do that once in a while. But I try and celebrate my kids like I celebrate my founders, kind of
Absolutely.
the same way. We learn together. We're gonna fail a lot, and we're gonna get back up and try it again. And that's kind of what you do in Web3 is you try a lot of stuff. You be transparent about what you're working on, and then you fix it, and you learn from those mistakes. And that's childhood in a nutshell, pretty much. I think.
No, 100%. And to that end, have you noticed any difference in the community vibe when you go to a Web3 event versus others in terms of that approachability and people just being open to those relationships?
Definitely more open, definitely less history, right? With people's, like kind of like, this is me, this is only me, this is all I do, and this is my world, and it's closed off. A lot of folks are newer to the space. In general, it's only a few years old, so they're open to learning from you. If you've done something in the past few years that has done well and have made an example of it, they're eager to learn. And I think people do that have done well are eager to give back too. So you see that kind of that flywheel happening of like newer and older people in the spaces working together on things. Um, and there's like the ideas can come from anywhere. So you have to really just be open to listen to people. And that's what I do, every day of my life is like, I'll just try and listen to my people as I can to hear what they're working on, their perspectives, either if they're different than my perspective. I want to hear them out and see why they think that and how they came to that conclusion. And then maybe there's something I'm missing on my side of the coin that I can kind of bring in to my world that I think is important. So, a lot of people don't realize that that's kind of the biggest problem I think in the world right now is people don't realize the other side of the coin half the time. So just like my way or the highway, and really the key is compromise. So if we can get to a more empathetic, compromising situation where we're like, all right, there's both sides of the coin here. Let's make a pack that makes the most sense for everybody. I think that's where we win. And that's what you see happening, I think, in Web3, in a sort of happening in Web3 as far as like people finding the middle ground. And I think that's but as we need more
And
of, a
just to
ton
kind
more
of add
of.
on to that, and I've experienced this firsthand with Chris and Kevin together and individually, is the real people are really believing in collaboration over competition and abundancy. We all learn together, rising tides lift all ships. And I think that's a mentality that is keeping us afloat and keeping us moving in the right direction. And Chris is leading the way.
Absolutely, 100%. Chris, in doing my research for the show, I obviously I got to hear you speak and get your thoughts on a lot of things. You were recently discussing how you believe that the future of Web3 community building is actually not scaling up, but it's scaling down, right? And so, in other words, you see artists and creators building around niche communities, focusing on 1,000 greatest fans versus trying to scale to 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, right? And and I got to say that that makes total sense to me. When I look at the Web3 space and how it's all developing, that's what it feels like. You get a real small community, almost like a high school vibe kind of deal. So it's definitely my hope for this space. But this take coming from a VC who's invested in 20 plus companies, around the
70.
space. Excuse me, 70 plus organizations that
Yeah.
as you have with Flamingo Capital, that might not be what what you'd expect to hear. So I'm curious, why do you think the future is in scaling down versus up? And then can you explain how NFTs have enabled the creation of these niche communities in the Web3 ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, I think you need to start smaller first, and everything you do is kind of like win this niche, right? And then you can expand from there. So everyone tries to do everything at once at first, and you can't go for the massive audience right away. So you got to really start with like one audience that loves this one thing, and you nail it. And if you nail that one product or that one offering or that one event, you can kind of develop the second, third, fourth iteration of that and expand from there. But you want to always focus on the core of like those 1,000 users, right? Whatever that number is for you, who can really be a part of your thing with you, and they can give you instant feedback. They can build things with you. They can have equity in whatever you're building. If you're going to do an NFT in a Web3 manner, an NFT is just a contract, right? So you're saying that you get X and I'm giving you Y, and this is on the blockchain now. So it's yours to transfer to somebody else, or you it could be an equity part of someone, something that we decide on. It's just a new way of doing, organization, and I think the one day of doing business is going to happen. I think in my background and Adam's as well is around loyalty and rewards, and that's really what these bigger brands are now dipping their toes into. And I hope that they don't try and just go so broad right away. I want to see them start really small on a very small set of people, and you kind of trial it out and give those people that they're working with some ownership in whatever this project is. And then once that goes right, great, you can try it on different, kind of like idea that you're working on, and you want to really put your all into it. And that's what I think the big and small companies and just people starting from zero need to understand is that it has to start smaller, and that's when the big long term effects will happen down the road. So people you're in the trust that way. I think that's what I've seen at least. That's how I've trusted more and have seen them kind of start small and then go from there. Um, the folks that try and go just too large, they miss everything. They're just like trying to like spray and pray at stuff. They're trying to be everything to everybody, and often they're not gonna get the long term benefits from that because the people who are there first are just like, well, what is this for me now? Am I still a part of this thing? Do they care about me? Do I have any input anymore? And I think that you've seen this happen many times in history. It's not like the first case of this happening. So, Web3 is, I think, the way to kind of give this equitable, demonstration of people being involved. And that's kind of all we have in Web3 at this point.
Yeah, and because you touched on it in terms of big brands, I kind of want to follow up on that. How do you see it continuing to evolve into the future? And what are your thoughts on big brands entering this space, giving their history of really only caring about growth above all else? Right? Are you excited? Are you fearful? Like what do you actually expect to happen when they do come in?
Yeah, I'm excited for them to only do it if they actually are gonna, like, commit to it
Yeah.
and make it a part of their core business philosophy. So, if, for instance, if Starbucks starts doing Zoom rewards and loyalty through this manner, like, make this thing be
Right.
forever, and if you can transfer assets to
Yeah.
somebody else and share what you have earned, that is a thing that I think people need to do more of. Like airline miles for sure should be a part of that thing. Rewards,
Work for this.
whatever you're earning
Go
for
for
what
it.
you've done for these brands should be, kind of two-way street.
Lived in perpetuity. 100%.
Yeah.
I signed up for Odyssey, the plan with Starbucks. I'm super interested to see how it develops because I feel like they're the test, right? I feel like all these
Yeah.
big brands are looking and waiting to see how it plays out, how they develop. They're on some blue chip, they're on Polygon, so they're on a blockchain that makes sense to people. So I'm uber curious on how it works out. Because we know how big brands like to take one idea and then just run with it.
Yeah.
With that,
Well, it shouldn't matter, right?
I'm trying out some new sound effects here on the first show.
that was
I like it.
that was pretty good. That was
I know,
pretty
it's a good one. Right?
That's a good segue. Good segue.
All right.
No, that's a good segue.
Here's the segue. All right, I'm done here, guys. All right.
Case closed.
So let's go ahead and switch gears. Why
We're
don't
trying
we?
to do edutainment here, guys. Listen, we're going to keep the show lively. We're going to keep
absolutely.
it flowing. We're going to have a
Heck
good
yeah.
time here. So why not add some sound effects? Test and learn. Isn't that part of Web3? Test and learn. See what
That's
works.
it.
And if you get the hang of that, I'm
Well,
all
I'm going
for
to try
it.
to be
I'm all
like the
for it.
Fred
So,
Norris of the show. Anyone's familiar with the Stern Show with the
oh,
sound
please.
effects?
If you could get that Law and Order dum dum in there, that would be fantastic.
Anyway, moving on.
But moving on. So anyway, no, let's switch gears. Like I said, let's talk a little bit about your work as a venture capitalist in the Web3 space. I think especially with all the calamities that have occurred over the last year or so around unfortunately the name that we try not to say, although we'll say it, SBF. I know Voldemort, you interesting little fellow. Anyways, but based on all the calamities that have happened, and everybody either having one complete end of the spectrum idea on what VCs do or the other, they loathe the existence, or please invest in my project. The last time I heard you speak, you mentioned that Flamingo Capital was in 70 startups. So I think the phrase that is top of mind for people that have been looking at this is due diligence, and everybody wondering what that means and what was done because of everything that transpired, given the fact that they believe that due diligence was done. So for the listeners at home that feel like there's that curtain around what VCs do and or more likely curious, especially after the FTX debacle, can you walk us through how Flamingo Capital goes about decision-making process and when you're evaluating potential investments in the Web3 and blockchain projects?
Yeah. So, there's a lot of trust involved in when people are vetting ideas with founders that they have built that bond with. And hopefully it's happening over a course of, not just days, but months and years of knowing people and what they're working on. And that's how I kind of have been investing. It's people I've met over the course of many times that I got to know, and I understand how they work and how they do what they say they're going to do, and how they kind of have this this code of ethics that I think people need to understand. And a lot of times people have just glossed over that stuff, and they see a really good thing taking flight and like, oh, I gotta get on this train. And that's when people get kind of caught with their pants down. They understand that they haven't done a lot of research on the people behind it. Let's understand who's building this stuff and why they're building it. And then you have to really dig into like the back end of these people's technologies. So in the case of, FTX, people got caught in the whole like kind of upswing of this and being a huge, tremendous, opportunity, right? So they were chasing money at that point. But you see, it happens every day. I mean, I see people who invested in things that these founders have been lying to them, about things that they have been hiding. And sometimes you really can't find that out until they get caught with their pants down, whether something actually gets opened up and like, oh, there actually is something here that is off. So sometimes you actually can't, due diligence on that type of like deceit and people who are lying to you and they're hiding it in a very like, pretty airtight way. It happened, I saw yesterday to the people, JP Morgan bought a company called Frank, and they were doing, I think FAFSA work, and this lady was just like basically lying about everything. It was nuts. She's in
She had
Miami,
like
actually. I heard
74
about this,
million email addresses or something like that.
74 million. That's right.
which she bought for like
And she
100
had her
grand.
she had
So
her
like,
tech
you know,
guy
like
just kind of like load them in. That was
right,
fine.
right, and this is happening, probably more than we know. There are probably a lot of numbers that we don't know are actually legit or not, and because you often can't find that out, unless you really spend a lot of time digging into a company, and it could take you years to uncover what's been done, but beforehand. So A lot of times you're trusting the founder to give you the right information, and then you're doing diligence by talking to other employees, and then putting it through this logic kind of like meter to say, "All right, does this seem right? Does this seem
Bullshit
impossible?
meter.
Like, how can you grow this fast, and how?" And like, yeah, basically your bullshit meter should go off. Like, this is probably too
Yeah.
good to be true a lot of times. And people don't want to think about that. They go, "Oh, I have a great thing. They're getting valuations at X number of dollars, and like I can 10x my investment from the last round." So no one kind of wants to be that person to raise their hand and say, "Wait, let's pump the brakes here and let's roll back," because everyone's in this like train of like thought of like, all right, they're all doing great, so let's just keep it going. So it's sad. When we invest, we're not really a lead investor, so we're investing alongside other tier one VCs that have done this diligence. So I do my best case of doing the human side of it. I don't
Yeah.
have access to all that they have access to is because they're the lead investor. But I'm more of like, do I trust this person? And I can talk to many folks as I can to get that vibe from them. And I'm 70 in, I think like 40 personally and 30 through Flamingo.
Wow.
So far, no one has done anything shady, which is great. So I'm happy about that. I'm 7 years into that. Hopefully that continues. You try and find good people that are gonna just tell you the truth. Um,
Two,
so fingers crossed sometimes. That's kind of what you gotta do.
100%.
Okay.
Two interesting threads there are one, the FOMO is real, whether you're the richest out there or you're the brokest out there. And that goes so true, especially with new innovation, where 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 it's really hard to do that due diligence because so much is moving, so many things are developing, and so many people want to get that product out there as soon as possible to get a piece of that missing out and make sure they don't. The other interesting thread in terms of the due diligence is it's a lot like what we do for recruiters on a smaller level, right? We do our best to do the due diligence and hope that they are exactly who they say are when they place their butt in that seat. But at the end of the day, we can only do our best, and then things happen. So in terms of that, when I heard you talking about the individuals and looking for them, you talked about looking for the disruptors. Given this space is so decentralized, it's so spread out, it's interesting because it's almost like recruiting, right? You're sourcing. How do you search for those disruptors? How do you do that sourcing to find those individuals that you want to invest in?
So I want folks that have been in that world for a number of years, and they've seen it all, almost from the inside out, and they've spotted an area that probably is annoying them, and they think needs to be changed and fixed for the betterment of the whole industry. And that's the person I want to invest alongside. I want them to understand this problem intimately, better than anybody else, and they're a person to change it for the better. A lot of our companies that we invested in are folks that have been in these worlds for a long time that have seen all the stuff come at them, and they probably are fed up at it. So you want to look for someone that has that experience, and someone that has the wherewithal to understand what they're good at and what they're not good at, and then how to build around themselves, and having that kind of that interior know-how of how to be the bigger person here and not always have the answer themselves. And that's how you build a really solid team around yourself. And I think a lot of our founders have that that EQ, right? That they know what
Self-awareness.
they're good at and what they're not good at, and they know who to
Yep.
trust. And they basically build their teams around that ethos of like, all right, we all don't know the answers. Let's work on it together. You do your best at, and then you pass off the stuff that you're not great at. And you kind of come to a conclusion around an idea that you probably all have done your proper diligence by yourselves. And then you bring it together. So team formation, EQ is super important.
Humility.
And what's that?
Humility. Like just being humble, like just knowing like,
Humility.
hey,
Yeah,
listen, I don't know what the
100%.
hell this is. Let's learn it. Let's figure it out, or find someone who does.
Right.
Uh,
And then the tenacity to basically go to the
Yep.
end of that exercise every time. And the ones that will stick with it and the ones that will put in the time and the passion around it are the ones that end up winning. So it takes some sort of the elbow grease to do it a lot of times, plus the EQ and the IQ to get there. So it's a combination of the hard work, the years of work behind it, and a little bit of luck being like the timing is actually right for this one
Yep.
idea. People have tried things a number of times at the wrong time, and they just fail because they're just too early for a thing, or the tech didn't match the actual consumer behavior yet. So like those things happen
Yeah, and
all the
sometimes
time.
it's just a twist on it. Right now, I'm in the middle of reading Matt Higgins' new book, Burn the Boats, and there's a whole chapter on it where he talks about, ideas and how sometimes it takes just trying something that's already out there and putting a new spin on it or doing differently with a It's not always reinventing the wheel. Right time and right place.
Yeah, the smallest little change can go a long way. As we've seen in history before, like, this one upgrade can really change the whole dynamic of how things scales and takes off and goes viral. So that happens a lot of times with social apps. It happens a lot of times with consumer products. Happens a lot of times with just, nascent tech that is new and hasn't been adapted for the enterprises yet. So like someone takes a thing that is doing somewhat okay in one part of it and they kind of flip it for another reason behind it, and that it takes off in that world. So that's what I look for, is like these incremental improvements that are game changers that no one has done that part of it yet. So you take tech that is legit existing and you make it just a little bit better where it's actually usable. And the onboarding time is easier. Like that's what the biggest problem I think in Web3 is onboarding time to do anything, where you have to like think about, oh, I have to do this stuff to like become part of this thing, and I'm scared. I have to learn things. I can lose it. I can be fooled. Like no one should have to think about this stuff. It should be as easy as just like logging into a thing and you have your email and you're good. Like who cares what chain it's on, really? I don't care if it's Polygon, if it's on Ethereum. I really don't care. I want it to just be like non-technical for me to understand as a consumer. And that's when things will get really interesting. I think we're not even close to being there yet.
100%. Yeah, it's awesome to have ambition in the passenger seat, but if you're not ready to hop in that driver's seat and actually drive that ambition forward, then it does little. Thinking about that in terms of due diligence and what's happened with Three Arrows Capital and BlockFi and Celsius, and we could keep going on, and that shall not be named. It happened, right? And so then a lot of people lost a lot of money. And I feel like we have to do a little bit better in terms of protection. So being that you're a VC investor, just a big strategic thinker in this space, I was curious your thoughts around regulatory clarity on Web3, NFTs, and cryptocurrency. You hear from so many big investors like Mark Cuban or the previously more Mr. Wonderful Kevin O'Leary, but that all the big money is just clamoring to get in the space. We're just waiting for a little bit more rules to the road. We're looking for guardrails. Is that how you see it? Actually, are people just clamoring with cash ready to get in, waiting for regulatory clarity, or what do you think needs to happen?
I wouldn't say clamoring. There's still a lot of harm that's been done in the past year around the trust issues and overall understanding of how this stuff works. I do think we need more security. In fact, like I think that we can take a page out of like how people have built institutions for years of governments and whatnot, how to like build the trust around it, and then build some sort of like FDIC insurance around your cryptocurrency. Like that could happen, and that could be a huge business on us. So that if someone did make that. Some way to ensure like if you have your funds stolen and there's like no one to go to, like you can't like call the police. It doesn't work like that yet, and that needs to like somewhat in a matter of speaking change to be more secure of like, all right, I have some like recourse if someone steals this from me. There are ways to do it, but it would take a long time to kind of do all the proof to kind of get that to be a court case. But you're seeing it happening. You'll see it happen now with FTX. That'll be a first big like court case that will kind of put these things into place and somewhat of a beginning steps of security. So these things have to happen. The things are always going to break early, and people are going to abuse the system before there's real rules in place. So
regulations through persecution.
Yeah, someone the bad actors get caught pretty fast, as we've seen. It's only been a couple of years of this, right? So like they're getting caught, and they're going down, and more are going to go down. And the folks that have been playing by the rules, just the rules of like internal rules of like, this is right, this is wrong type of thing, not pushing the limits on like taking too much and like, cheating and lying and stealing. Those folks are going to win. And those folks that have been doing it for the right reasons for a long time and believe in the reason behind it is, to defend against like, corruption. That's why people have started in the beginning. They started Bitcoin to defend against, governments going under, inflation. They wanted a safer place for that. And that's why it started in the first place. And now what's happening is people are taking it and running with it in a million directions, some not so great, some very good. And again, the ones that are not so great, they often kind of get found out. And that's what you're seeing happen right now.
Well, we're almost to the end of a show. But before we wrap up, I want to do a quick lightning round of questions for the audience to get a better understanding of where your heart truly lies. I'm going to ask you 10 questions, and for each one, I need you to answer one or the other. And Chris, you have to answer.
Rapid fire.
You have to answer, okay?
Rapid fire.
Rapid fire. Here we go. First question. New York or Miami?
Miami.
Oh my gosh. I'm telling everybody you know in New York. Giants or Dolphins?
Giants.
Boom.
Apes or punks?
Punks.
You were right. Digital art or physical art?
You know, I'm still a big physical art guy. Loving physical art.
Hashtag
My
Flamingo.
man. Meta World Peace or Baron Davis?
Oh,
Ooh.
I love my man BD. I love my man BD, but Meta has a hard spot as well, being from Queens. But BD, I love you, buddy. You the man.
Yes. Me too. Love you, BD. Come on the show. Web3 or crypto?
Web3.
Morning bike rides or morning basketball?
Ooh, basketball.
Fantasy, football or basketball?
Football, hands down.
And
I started
last,
playing basketball this year again, which has been a fun time. Not gonna lie.
all right, last two, Jordan 11s or Jordan 1s?
Oof, ones.
Ooh.
I have so many ones. So many ones. They're just so more versatile.
Not the Concords? Okay, all right, okay.
I love the Concords. I have a couple pairs of those, but the
I've
ones, man, are just like so clean and crisp. You can wear them with anything.
I'm jealous and I've seen them. And final question. What is one Web3 or blockchain project that you wish you had invested in and why?
I mean, I wish I invested in punks a long time ago. I just bought my first one last week, which is wild.
Oh, congrats.
So yeah, well, a bunch of friends and I all bought together. But yeah, I mean, it's the earliest thing, so it's kind of fun to have a piece of history like that. You know, I
Okay.
really enjoy like the historic collecting of things. I learned that from my wife's uncle, actually, of like, you know, buy the old shit. You know, have a
Absolutely.
piece of history, have a talking point, learn from these things. You know, understand like, you know, some things are not just about monetary value. It's about like this like piece of history, which is kind of cool. So yeah, but also I wish I got involved in the apes too. You know, I missed that boat. I knew it was happening too. I was on a boat. I was listening to my friend Will. He's like, I'm gonna mint this right now on my phone. I'm like, cool. He's like, I don't know what it is, but I'm like, okay, we should all do it, I guess. And we never
but he
did it.
did.
Yeah, I think I had beer instead.
He did.
What's that?
He did.
He did. He did.
We all have our Microsoft story. All right. To close out each show of the week, I want to end on a segment called "Is Chat GPT funny or not?" So I've been using a lot of AI tools. I've been putting a ton into my workflow, and I've been starting my day every single day by asking Chat GPT to give me its funniest joke. And I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I don't laugh, but every single time I smile, and I just want to make sure we're ending this show on a great note. Okay, so here we go. I asked ChatGPT to give me its best Web3 joke that it could possibly muster. And here's what we got. Chris, why did the Bitcoin miner go to therapy?
I don't know.
Because he was having difficulty adjusting to the constant difficulty changes.
No. I don't know. We gotta work on that humor, I think.
So look, ChatGPT very soon is going to be ChatGPT 4, guys. Everybody at home, we're going to see if its comedic prowess develops, and if not, then please be hecklers at home. Let us know in the comments. Was it a good joke? Was it a bad joke? Do we need to do better? Do we need to prompt it better? Let us know. Please let us know.
Yeah. Better prompting.
Better
is
prompting.
Really important here,
So
I
that's-
think. That's gonna be a whole job function.
That's a
People
self-help.
prompting.
Sorry about that. All right, y'all. Chris, thank you so much for joining us. Greatly appreciate it. Please check out Chris on Twitter and Instagram at Chris Adamo, and at LinkedIn at opposite Adamo Chris. And if you're interested in learning more about Chris's investments with Flamingo Capital and perhaps how you can co-invest with Chris, go to flamingocapital.xyz for more information. But that's not all for this Master Connector, y'all. Chris also runs Miami Tech Happy Hour, which is a weekly starting ground for anyone in Miami. I've been there. It's amazing. That's interested in local tech scene. Visit themiamitechhappyhour.com for more information. And then to everyone listening at home, thank you so very much for joining us and for listening to us on the Immutable Mindset. Please follow us on our socials, me on Twitter at Bitmember and at Kevin Logan on LinkedIn. And Adam, it looks like you have something to say.
Yeah, it's our first show. We forgot to wrap it up with the summary, the key takeaways.
Of course. Excuse me. I'm supposed to kick it to the bombastic, the effervescent Adam Posner for those takeaways, please.
All right. Well, we're gonna. It's the early days here, so we're gonna put this in the right place. We might even do it in post production here. Chris talks about, and I've seen this firsthand, is the power of relationships, and that's really his foundation. And he also talks the power of the jam shirts and fostering those relationships and opening up doors. Web3 is all about learning from your mistakes and leading with empathy and care, humility, and doing things the right way. Be focused, build with intention, and understand who you are building with. Know these people as best you can and do your due diligence. The FOMO is real, no matter how much or how little that you have. And one small change and a tweak on an existing product or service out there can make a huge difference and make it go viral. Trust and security is real. Make sure you take it seriously. Chris is an optimistic builder and a collector of history, and we are thrilled to have him as one of our first guests on the Immutable Mindset.
That's right. Subscribe, comment, and network. Remember, thanks for joining us, and catch us next week for more. Take care, everybody. Bye.